So this has to be one of the most popular topics in the Bleach community because nobody knows about Ulquiorra's true power. Who knows about his Segunda Etapa? But Starrk is said to be Espada #1. He's supposed to be the strongest. So then everybody just flips out, wonders who's stronger between Ulquiorra and Starrk, and I guess I gotta come into this video today to kind of solve this problem. But if you enjoy Bleach power scaling content, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hey, if you want bonus content, you can click that join button and gain access to debates that I've uploaded and that I will continue to upload in the future, as well as past live streams. So if that tickles your pickle, it tickles your fancy, go ahead and click that join button and become a channel member today. But let's go ahead and just kind of look at the arguments for Ulquiorra and Starrk and kind of determine why. I'm not going to hold back anymore. Starrk does slap Ulquiorra around. There's not very many good arguments for Ulquiorra beating Starrk. They might seem pretty good when you start getting into Bleach power scaling. You're like, well, Ulquiorra loses his number and he makes big boom boom explosion, so therefore he must be stronger than Starrk, which, for one, I love the argument that Ulquiorra loses his number, therefore he's the numberless Espada, right? He has no number, he's no longer a part of the Espada ranking. But if that's the case, is Holybell also like this transcendent Espada? Because I don't know if you guys remember, but she has a little number 3 in her questionable area, and then it disappears when she goes into her resurrection. So does that mean that Holybell is also a transcendent Espada? She also is beyond Baragon, Starrk, and Yami. Sure, you can try to make that argument and say, well, she did go on to become Queen of Huaycamundo, and she did go on to take 2 hits from Aizen, but the more likely is that, for one, Starrk, Baragon, and Holybell are said to be around the same power by Jushiro and Shinsui, as when they look at the top 3 Espada, they're like, we can't really tell who's the strongest between the 3, so it's very likely that all 3 of them are very close in terms of their power. And then 2, it's also likely that a lot of the top 4 Espada, as they are like the transcendent Arancars, right, as they sit above the other ones, like they make it pretty clear that there's a large gap when you get to the top 4 because they can't even resurrect inside of Las Noches. So it's just likely that because they're so much stronger than everybody else, they lose their number. That would be my explanation of like kind of the Bleach lore and why Kubo's doing that. If you're looking for an actual concrete answer, there actually isn't one. He doesn't explain why they lose their numbers at all, but that would just be my explanation of what Kubo's trying to do. So yeah, that argument really doesn't work, but anybody that really knows their salt about Bleach probably isn't using the fact that Ulquiorra loses his number, as him being stronger than the other Espada, right? They're probably not using that. What you might use as like a viable argument for Ulquiorra being stronger is, well, Ulquiorra has more impressive feats, and that is an argument you can make. There are people that don't use statements at all whatsoever, and they just like their feats. The problem is that we have something for that in the debate community. We have this thing called attack potency, where you can have somebody that doesn't have the same destructive capability feats, or they might not have a technique that allows them to be as destructive, yet somehow they're still able to fight those characters of that same level, if not be far stronger than them, and we call that attack potency. So Ulquiorra just having better quote-unquote destructive showings does not actually concretely make him stronger than Starrk. Again, most of you guys should already be aware of this. I should not have to explain the difference between attack potency and destructive capability, as most people that have been in this community for, I don't know, like a month have probably already figured out what that is. So then we get into some of the other arguments. Well, Ulquiorra fights Full Hollow Ichigo, and people like to say that, well, Ulquiorra did very good against Full Hollow Ichigo. Look at the Hellverse movie, which, for one, I'd like to go ahead and get out ahead of that. Say that the Hellverse movie is not canon to the main Bleach timeline. I think people grossly misunderstand what canon actually means. For instance, I have no issue saying that all 4 of the Bleach movies are canon. They do happen under the Bleach IP. It's not like some fan fiction that some dude on 4chan wrote. This is officially released material that's under the Bleach IP, but there can be different timelines. Because a lot of the movies don't seem to fit very well, especially some of the filler arcs as well. It's kind of hard to slot like Diamond Dust Rebellion. Like, you can kind of maybe force them in somewhere, but you're always going to have these issues here and there of like, well, if this is here, like, then why isn't like Aizen here? Like, but it's after Fate Karakura. Like, you just start trying to wrap your mind around it, especially like Hellverse as well, where you're like, so Ichigo has the dual stripe, which means it's after Vasto Lorde, but then Aizen's not a threat anymore because we're not dealing with the Espada, so this has to be after Mugetsu, which means Ichigo should be weak, but Ichigo's actually still really strong. So you're just like, I guess it doesn't make him all that weaker. Like, you're trying to piece it together, and you're like, head hurty. But the bottom line is that, yes, they can be canon to the Bleach series, it's just they might be in different timelines. I mean, this shouldn't be that hard of a concept to grasp, as we already have this in the Dragon Ball community, right? Like, they've kind of already got that down pat, where it's like, okay, the movies don't fit. I mean, obviously, they're still, like, canon to their own timelines. They're just not canon to the main timeline, right? Like, this doesn't actually happen there. So the bottom line is that the Hellverse movie, there's nothing that indicates that it happens in the main timeline. Yes, Kubo did work on it, and that's fine. You shouldn't have any issue with it being, like, non-canon, because if you say something's non-canon, you're basically allotting it to just being, like, fan fiction at that point. Again, these movies clearly are produced to be in the Bleach IP. They're just not meant to be canon to the main timeline. But even if they were, let's say we steel man all of that. Let's say that the Hellverse portrayal of Ulquiorra versus Ichigo is actually true, right? Well, for one, Ulquiorra still got dominated in that battle. Like, people are like, dude, look, he blasted Vasto Lorde away. Like, he, like, smacked him and Vasto Lorde went flying. And they're like, look at that. It's way more even of a battle. It's like, no. Like, Full Hollow Ichigo still tore him limb from limb. It's like the fans that really, really like Ulquiorra are just grasping at straws, being like, well, I got in the ring and I punched Mike Tyson once, so you know what? Now at this point, we're clearly relative to one another. It's like, no, 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 no. You got lucky, kid. That's what happened. You still got torn limb from limb. Tyson still knocked you out in a few punches. That does not mean you guys are relative. You got boxed up and sent across the world, all right? But here's the part that's really going to blow people's mind. This might actually piss some people off. Let's say that Ulquiorra is relative to Full Hollow Ichigo. You know what's the crazy thing? You know what's absolutely bonkers about that? Is that they don't scale to anybody else. They only scale to one another, because I don't know if you remember, but Full Hollow Ichigo only fights Ulquiorra, and Ulquiorra doesn't have any direct scaling to Starrk. He has direct scaling above Grimmjow, and possibly Noitora because of their little encounter that they had. But fun facts is that they don't have any direct scaling above Starrk either. So actually, him even being relative to Full Hollow Ichigo, even if we do grant that, that doesn't actually do anything for him. Because you might say, well, what about the Ichigo that fights Yami right after? Like, Yami says he's the strongest Espada. Okay, this is gonna blow people's minds. I know this is finally getting some leeway in the community. People are finally starting to grasp this, but you know that Ichigo gets stronger after every fight, right? Like, he's getting Zenkai boosts throughout the entirety of the Arrancar saga. Every time he dies, he comes back stronger. I mean, that's pretty evident by the fact that Bankai Ichigo couldn't hold a candle to Grimmjow, yet he gets murked by Ulquiorra, gets revived by Orihime, and then somehow Bankai Ichigo and base Grimmjow are having a very pitched battle, and then Ichigo goes into his holified state and just slaps Grimmjow around. Like, it's a pretty decent fight initially, but then Ichigo's like, you know what? I don't feel like losing anymore. Catches Grimmjow, slice. You know, Grimmjow's like, here's my ultimate technique. And Ichigo's like, yeah, that's pretty cringe, bro. And just takes him out in like 2.5 seconds. Same thing with Ulquiorra. Bankai Ichigo is over here actually fighting base Ulquiorra and actually pushes him to go into his Resurrection after he obviously uses his holification. But the crazy thing is, I don't know if you remember at the beginning of the arc, but that same holified Ichigo was getting blasted by base Ulquiorra. And now he's over here pushing him into going into his resurrection. So Ichigo gets stronger throughout the arc, especially when he has a near-death experience, and his holo actually gets stronger throughout the arc as well. You can actually see the mask pattern changing, and White actually just blatantly says, yeah, I'm gonna keep training, and I'm gonna keep getting stronger so that when you slip up, I'm gonna take control of our body, and then I'm gonna be the king on the horse. Like, that's the whole point of what he's doing. So I would even posit the fact that it's not scalable. You can't even scale Full Hollow Ichigo to the Ichigo post-battle because he keeps getting stronger. But if you think that's out of pocket, you can come into the Discord and we can throw hands on that, because I know there's a lot of people that really stan the Full Hollow Ichigo for him. And I understand it's really cool, but you just don't understand how Ichigo functions as a character. You don't understand how much stronger he gets throughout the entirety of the arc. Again, that's also the same exact reason why Yuha was scared of Ichigo. That's why he was a war potential, because he just gets like BS power-ups throughout the entire series. He just makes massive leaps in power. So at the end of the day, what do we have? Because conversely, Starrk actually doesn't have any direct scaling above Ulquiorra. Starrk fights Shunsui and Jushiro, but how does that scale to Ulquiorra? They haven't fought anybody that Ulquiorra's fought, so you can't really make any direct correlation. The best thing you really have is that the Espada are ranked in terms of their strength, and Aizen, knowing everything that every Espada is capable of, put Starrk above Ulquiorra. And before somebody says, well, Aizen didn't know about Ulquiorra's full power. He actually does. We actually see in a flashback that Aizen demonstrates every single battle and every hurdle he put Ichigo through was to make him stronger, and when he shows Ulquiorra, he actually shows the Segunda Etapa form. You know, he blatantly says, and in that battle with Ulquiorra, you gained an even greater power. Now, if Kubo didn't want to imply that Aizen knew about Ulquiorra's second release, he would have just shown like first resurrection Ulquiorra, but he blatantly went out of his way to show Segunda Etapa to imply that Aizen actually knows about it. And there's also further statements in like the data books and like some of the novels where Aizen also alludes to the fact that he does know about Ulquiorra's second release. So yeah, it should be that Starrk just poo-poo stinkies all over Ulquiorra. Shouldn't really be all that difficult. If you wanted to go further into it, I mean, Starrk has better speed feats as well. Like, he blatantly has like the 75 times faster than light thing over Ulquiorra, and like what you have to do for Ulquiorra is calc stack, which, I mean, to say the very least, isn't really seen in a good light in the debate community. It's pretty frowned upon if you have to calc stack. I can maybe do a video explaining that later, I don't know. But yeah, Starrk should beat Ulquiorra. It's a lot of nonsense you have to go through to say that Ulquiorra wins. I get it, people like Ulquiorra. I just reread the entire series. I thought Ulquiorra was pretty cool as well. But don't be blind to the fact of like when one character's stronger than another. Like, you have narrative implications. You just have like the blatant scaling of Starrk being higher and like Ulquiorra having no scaling above him at all. You know, there's nothing that Ulquiorra has on Starrk that would put him above him. And I just don't want to see the Bleach community sink to like the Dragon Ball standard where everybody was saying that Broly solos everybody because he's big muscles. If you want to say that Broly solos everyone, at least have a good reason for it. Same thing with Ulquiorra. If you want to say that Ulquiorra beats Starrk, at the end of the day, I am fine with that, because my end goal is that I want people to be able to argue things, because it does lead to like a better debate community, but just do it better, right? Actually formulate a good point as to why you think Ulquiorra would be able to beat Starrk, and then come hit me with it, and then, you know, maybe we can hash that out. Otherwise, come join Team Starrk, come join Team Correct with your boy. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys, have yourselves a nice day. Try not to start a war in the comments down below. And with that, I'm gone. Peace. Late, guys.